Welcome to DD Durban Online. We're a church family on mission to see Durban change into a place where Jesus reigns. Here's this week's message.
Cool. So there we have it. Relationships is the series that we're diving into. I'd like to ask you to quickly think about one of your most precious memories in life. Think with me. All the introverts, get that one in your mind where you're thinking about a very special moment that you truly treasure and keep close to your heart. You got it? Got a precious memory? Okay, quickly share it with the person next to you. Tell them about this if you're able to. Okay, it looks like Pierre knows exactly how to answer this question. I asked, precious memory, my wife, immediately. It's like immediately in there. Honeymoon, good friendships. Can I take a guess that no matter what you've shared today, that you most probably, I would say more than 90% of the people, quickly by show of hand, had someone else in your memory, another person with you. Quickly raise up your hand if you had that moment with you. Interesting. Do you guys see? I'm like a psychic. How did I know this? Okay. What's interesting is the reason why I think it would actually be an obvious one for all of us is because we all live our lives in relationships. That's what it consists of. It's actually a network of relationships with all kinds of people and with things around us in this world and ultimately with ourselves. Hence, the reason why we're going into this series called Relationships. Because if you want to have heaven on earth, it most likely has something to do with the quality of your relationships. And if you're experiencing a little bit of hell on earth in your world, it most probably and most likely have something to do with your relationships, correct? Even if it's your relationship with yourself. So in this series, we're going to look at different kinds of relationships, and we're going to look at how you can organize and cultivate and steward the relationship God has entrusted to you, all the different kinds, in such a way that it can bring hope to the world around you and maybe even restore hope in your own world, in the own space, in your little inner room with the friends that you have. And in week 1, we're going to look at friendships. What does that look like? Week 2, we're going to look at dating. So I know this is primarily focused on all the single people, but it's not because you have kids. So come in, give some advice, come and learn. Number 3, we're going to look at marriage and singleness. We're going to dive into that one. And then in week 4, we're going to tackle the big one where we're going to talk about sex in our relationship journey. So with week 1, we're diving into friendships. And I think it's probably one of the most underrated relationship talks that we many times get. Usually when I listen to sermon series on relationships, I don't hear a sermon on friendships. It's not something that we speak a lot about. It's very much like, it's just we take it for granted. Friendships are almost, how can I say it, coincidental. I'm with this workspace now I have one of these friends, and they just, like, friendships happen to me like life happens to me. However, I do believe friendships is far more important and forms far more in our lives than what we think. Proverbs 13 verse 20 says the following: the one who walks with the wise will become wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm. Can I quickly check? Any of you guys have some fools for friends? Anybody wants to put up their hands? Okay. Anybody of you are some fools when it comes to your friendships? Obviously, no one in this environment. Nobody. This is like the perfect people. Okay, cool. The point of this, I think, is so profound. You've all probably heard this statement before. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. That's the profound impact that friends can have on our lives. Far more than what we think and what we would dream. In fact, there's a study done about your friends that shows us that your spouse will influence when it comes to losing weight. Anybody wanting to lose weight? I think I've mentioned this stat before. Okay, we had a few hands up there. I'm with you. Don't worry. We're going to do this together. Okay? They say that if you are doing this with your spouse, your likelihood of losing weight would go to about 38%. Okay? When you go with a sibling, it might increase a little bit, like with 2% to 40-something. But when you do it with a friend, your chances of success increases to 59% likelihood, almost 60%. That's the impact that our friendships have on us, around us. So show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. So to unpack this, I thought it best to maybe just look at two little statements. And the first one is going to be quick and easy. And the second one, I really want us to unpack the part in terms of choosing friends. So firstly, my circle of friends. Make the circle bigger. You get the picture there. We're going to look at the circle of friends around us. And then secondly, we're going to, in detail, look a little bit at how do I choose friends, but also in the same side of the coin, how can I be a good friend? Okay, so circle of friends. Let's quickly look at circle of friends first. Okay, usually when I speak to people about friendships nowadays, it's all in the brackets or in the view or in the picture of social media. How many friends do you have on social media? Anybody 200 friends? 300 friends? Above 300, 400 friends? A few hands, 500 friends? 600? 700? Not? Okay, 600. Anybody else higher? Anybody even know how many friends they have on Facebook? Okay. Okay. It's kind of like the term friendship has been very diluted to something of, I like you on Facebook, and I get a little bit informed of what's happening in your life, and now you're my friend. That's not really genuine friendship, the kind of friendship that the Bible actually speaks of and encourages us to have within our lives. That kind of friendship group, I would say, is the circle called the care circle of friends. The people that you might know. I don't even know how many people on Facebook that are your friends do you actually know, but let's say you do know them. You have an idea of who they are, but that's like the big circle. These are the guys that you primarily care for. That's the first circle of friends. It's like very far out there. It's like the casuals here and there. Then you have a second circle of friends, most likely in your life, that we call the influence group. Now, these are not just the people that you know, but the people that you are actually influencing on a daily basis. You are one of the voices that speaks into their life. That would be a second circle of friends. The last circle of friends are the intimate group of friends. This is what I call the intimacy circle. And this is the people that you allow to shape you. You open up your life to them. That would be the three dimensions of friendships that I see being spoken in the Word, even in the life of Jesus. Jesus had a big group of people, the 5,000 or the 72, let's rather say that. Then down to that, he had the 12. And then down from there, he even had the 3, the intimate group of guys that he journeyed with and that he opened up to fully. So when you think about your friends, I want to ask you, just quickly, using these 3 categories, how does your friendship circles look? Do you have a big circle of care? And are you showing care in that big circle to the friends that you're connected to? Do you have a circle of friends that you are busy influencing? Can you put names down there for yourself? And then lastly, and that's the one that I want to double click on for the rest of our time together, is do you have a group of friends that you've allowed into your life that's intimately busy shaping and forming you? And who are they? Who are you looking for? What are you looking for in those friends that you're allowing so close into your life? Okay. The way I want to answer that question is by looking at the life of David. Sorry, not Daniel, but David. Daniel also had a few friends, his 3 friends, but we're going to today look at David's friends. And what's interesting is David had 3 very big friends in his life, role players that actually falls into 3 categories to help him and to shape him into the man that he would become. Now, what's interesting about David, I don't know if you guys know this, but David is actually the figure in history that we have the most information personally about in all of ancient history. It's David. We have intimate details about his life and what he did and how he lived his life and who influenced his life. We also know that David's called a man after God's own heart. We clearly can see that God loved David. He even gave David a covenantal promise saying that the king that would save the world will come through your line. Jesus will come through you, David. That's the level of intimacy that this man had. He's clearly a man that made his mark on history. And who shaped him into the person that he would become? Well, it was his friends. It was primarily the guys around him. And the first friend that I think I want to talk about quickly this morning that shaped David into the person that he would become is Samuel. Samuel. And Samuel, I would like to call the crown bestower. This is the friend that sees more in David than David sees in himself. We all know the story of Samuel, the prophet that had to anoint the first king of Israel, called King Saul. And then Saul totally messed up, and God started speaking to Samuel, and he said to Samuel, I have a new king. I'm going to walk with a new guy, and this time Israel is not going to choose, but I'm choosing. It's very clear to see that Samuel walked, and then he went. God showed him to go to the house of Jesse. Arrived at Jesse's house, and Jesse got all of his sons together. Everybody was there. And every son came before Samuel. And every time a guy would come, Samuel would look at this guy thinking, yes, this is the eldest. Look at this guy, strong. Looks like the material of a king. This is leadership material. This is going to be the guy. Look at the oak. And then you just clearly hear God saying, no, this is not the guy. The next guy comes in, and so Samuel would work his way through all of the sons of Jesse, right to the end, and then he's like, God says there's no one here. And looks at Jesse and he asks him, do you have any more sons? And then David's own father says, yes, yeah, David, but he's like watching after the sheep there. He's not important. No, he wasn't even invited to the meeting. That's how little importance he had in his own father's eyes. His father only saw a shepherd boy. David arrives. God tells Samuel, I do not look at men the way humans do. I look for different things. And he anoints David king of Israel. David's first friend was a guy that saw a king where everyone else saw a shepherd's boy. Do you have a friend like that? Do you have a crown bestower that sees more in you than what you would even see in yourself? Do you have a crown bestower that you're allowing in your intimate space of your life? Are you opening up your life and allowing those words of that person to influence you with truth, to challenge the view that you have of yourself, and to see more in you, speak life into you? I'll never forget the first time this really happened in my life. The guy that I would say is my crown bestower, my Samuel, his name is Donnie. Some of you guys have met him already, and you know him quite well. An amazing man. In fact, he was the guy that saw a leader in a little tech boykie. He saw a campus pastor and later on a guy that would come to start a church in a new city. Because one guy saw something in me which nobody else saw. Something was birthed. It started growing. The question is, do you have someone that sees a king where everyone else only sees a shepherd's boy? Because God, let me tell you guys, has a great plan for your life. And you need to trust him for the friends around you. You need a Samuel, a crown bestower. So, do you have a friend like that? Secondly, how can you be a friend like that? Just quickly want to double click on this. How can you become someone else's Samuel? Because not only do we need someone like that in our lives, how do we become someone? Well, you see what God sees in other people. You look like he does. God values the weak. He reaches out to the poor and those that cannot do much in the eyes of this world. And he sees far more in them. So if you want to be a great crowd bestower, pray about the friends around you, the people that's many times rejected, and see in them what God sees in them. A king. The second kind of friend that I think we all need in our inner circle, our intimate circle, is in David's life called Jonathan. David and Jonathan. Probably heard that phrase before. It's like a David and a Jonathan, like next level buds. Now, Jonathan is the guy that I would like to call the faithful companion. This is the guy that runs in when everybody else runs out in your house. Your house is burning down. This oak gets into his car and he makes sure that he stops right in front of your house and he comes and saves you out of the burning house. And we all know the story about Jonathan that even turned on his own household. His father wanted to kill David. He was hunting David down. And in that moment, Jonathan said, no, I'll protect you. I'll go and check it out. And if it is so, I'll come back. I'll warn you that you don't get into my father's hands. He saved his own friend. He turned against his own father to save David. That is a key moment in David's life that shaped him into the person that he would become. In fact, he went into a covenant with Jonathan at that day that would protect Jonathan's children's inheritance, Mephibosheth, which is also an amazing story, but we don't have enough time today to share it. Do you have a Jonathan in your life, a guy that will run in when everybody else runs out? To me, this was Willem. Now, Willem was the guy that had the privilege of teaching me how to play acoustic guitar. It was really lacking. In fact, I started because Gerda was playing acoustic guitar in Willem's classes. So you can see my motivation was quite high. And in fact, we actually started playing guitar. We merged our classes together. Then we would have 1 hour class. It was amazing. It was like that. Mm-hmm. And then obviously I like head over heels in love with this lady. And she just like backed me. And I was like in tears. It was crazy. I was like, I couldn't make it going on. My life felt like, especially after Gerda said she thinks this might work. And then the weekend after that, the Monday morning, I find out she did not really mean what she was saying. And my whole life came tumbling down right in front of me. There's no future. Anybody been there before? Yeah. You laugh like that? You know that nice table at my house? We call it the crying table. Yeah. I know how you guys feel. Cool. So I've been at that table and I was crying. And you know the guy that was running in to help me through that moment in that season of my life was Willem. And Willem told me, he said, if you just know what I know, just trust me on this one. It's going to all work out fine. Until today, Willem is one of my best buds that I'll call when the house comes burning down. He's the guy that I can trust on to encourage me, to run in, to be there with me, to support me, to be my Jonathan. Do you have a guy like that in your life? Because you need one. We all need one to run in. First question. Second question, are you a friend like that to the people around you? You know, this is where I learned the most about friendships, actually. Because my life, as most of you guys know, had its sad and hard and difficult moments within friendships. My friends were the guys that hurt me most as a young man. Age of 13, 14, lots of verbal, physical, ultimately sexual abuse that happened through my friends. That got me into a place where I wouldn't trust anybody and I didn't even know how to make friends. And it was through this discovery of David and Jonathan that I discovered a key to making friends with people. And here's the key. The key is to find someone that's in trouble and consistently, over a long period of time, just continue to reach out and care. Continue and reach out to care. If you want to know how to be a friend, just reach out and care consistently. That's the best way of doing it. You'll quickly see how a friendship starts forming over a certain period of time. Trust starts building. Don't sit around and wait for people to do that to you. Why don't you stand up and start becoming one? If you're looking for friends, here's the best way to start and be one. Run in to people's crises and consistently care. Look for those opportunities and become a Jonathan. So there we have it. The first friend was Samuel, the crown bestower that sees more in you than what you see in yourself. The second friend is Jonathan, the faithful companion, the guy that runs in when everybody else is running out. The last friend is Nathan. This is the guy that really, really played a pivotal role in David's life. And David's the guy that Nathan is the guy that I would like to call the loyal wounder. We all need a friend like this, but we don't want a friend like this. And when I say don't want, we don't like it. The loyal wounder is the guy that tells you the thing that you need to hear, but you don't want to hear. With me? But he does it in such a way that it actually changes your life. It saves your life. It saves who you are created to be. And Nathan was that guy for David. We all know the story about David, Bathsheba. Quite a famous story. Like David looked like the perfect king until Bathsheba arrived and she took that little bath on the rooftop. And David started dreaming dreams and inviting her over for a koppie koffie. And then it turned into a lekker glasie wyn. As you guys know what happens. And then David, in that moment, as the king, decided he's going to try and cover his wrongs when he got the news that there's a little David on his way in Bathsheba. Now he has trouble. So David takes it in his own hands to try and cover what he's done wrong. Guys, first lesson in David's life. Please do not cover. Bring it in the light. Then people can help. People can journey. David, as great a king as he was, didn't do that. He covered up. So he organized that Bathsheba's husband, Uriah, would come back home from the war just to give a report, and then he would send him home to have a wonderful night with his wife. But this guy is so patriotic and so dead sure, great friend, wonderful friend, that he would not spend time with his wife while all of his other friends that's in the battlefield is sleeping alone tonight. So he refused to go back home to go and sleep there. Now David's in real trouble. He's really trying to cover this baby up. So the next morning he makes a decision that's unthinkable. He sends a letter with Uriah. He gives him that same letter that's sealed, that signs his death sentence, where he tells the commander of his army to put Uriah in the front of the heat of the battlefield, that in the moment when the battle is at its fiercest, he wants the whole army to pull back and leave Uriah to die. That is the message that he's sending with Uriah. You know what's even more shocking? Uriah was known as one of David's mighty men. It's one of his guards. Uriah, actually, we know and we read about his story, very famous story actually, when David stands behind Saul in the cave, and instead of taking Saul's life, he cuts off a piece of his cloak and he spares Saul's life. And the guy that stood right next to David, telling him the following words, "Today, God has delivered Israel into your hands. You can now kill Saul." That guy's name was Uriah. That's how close David and Uriah was. This was the guy that was with him in the trenches when he was fleeing for his life. He was willing to protect him. He was with them in the most intimate spaces. I mean, they were standing in that tomb right there. They could have taken Saul's life like this. That's Uriah. That's the guy whom David steals his wife and then ultimately sends him to his death sentence just to try and cover up what he's done wrong. And then the loyal wounder steps onto the scene. Mr. Nathan the prophet. And he approaches David, and he does it in such a wise way. He comes to David and he asks him a question about an injustice. Question goes as follows. You have a guy with a lot of lambs and sheep, and then you have another guy with one little lamb. And the guy with the lots of lambs comes over and he takes this guy's lamb for himself. This kind of lamb that this guy would like to offer unto the Lord, which is a sacred act. David hears it and he's like, what? How is this possible? How could this even happen? The guy that took that lamb should immediately be killed. Bring him to me. And the next moment, Nathan says, that guy's you. You had everything, yet you still stole from someone else. You took something that did not belong to you. You took it from that person. And in that moment, you realized it's wrong. He heard the truth in such a way that he could understand it and that he was open to change. He repents, immediately goes into repentance and prays, fasts, asks for the Lord's forgiveness. What a friend was Nathan to open that up, that David could keep his kingdom that he had to lead. Do you have a Nathan? As someone that can speak truth in such a way that can save your life and the inheritance that God has for you? When I think about my Nathan, I think about a story in grade 9, the first Nathan that I ever experienced in my life. The guy's name was Bram. We're good friends still today. And in those days, I was like a lazy okie. I really didn't like going to school. It's not my favorite thing in life, I'll be honest. I'll confess. So I had this bad habit of coming to school and always asking him, because he was really a faithful guy. He would do his work well. So I was one of the guys that would make friends with the guys that's always doing their homework. Are you with me? So that I can copy the homework, but I want to make sure that the guy that's getting good points so they don't copy bad work. So I would copy their homework every single day, like either in a registration period or during break time. And my good friend Bram would always be very nice, and he would like, ja, ek sal uit help, I'll help you this time, and so on and so forth. Until the one day in grade 9. Before that, grade 8, I still had bad friends. Grade 9, Bram became one of my friends, and I remember the second term, we were sitting down on the assembly block and having broodjies and all. In any case, they were having broodjies. I was busy doing my maths. Copying maths. Writing it down because we had maths the next period. And he looked at me as he gave that book to me, and he said, Lorraine, do you really want to be the guy that always copies other people's work and not do your own? That's just a question that he put out there. Now, that was the last day that I copied people's work. Let me just say that. Because the way he phrased that question would change my life forever. And it even impacts me still today. Am I going to copy someone else's stuff, or am I going to be one with integrity that's going to do the stuff that God has entrusted to me to do because he wants me to do it? What a friend and what a lifesaver at that stage in my life. Do you have a Nathan? And secondly, how can you be a Nathan in someone's life? This is key. Guys, this is so key. This is a very difficult friend to be. You really have to be very wise in this. My suggestion would be, when it comes to being a friend like a Nathan, because this is a friend that can speak the truth to you in a way that it changes your viewpoint. Genuinely. Now, some of us in this room really love to speak the truth. Correct? Anybody wants to put up their hands for that one? Yeah. Say it net strak, papa. Okay? And it's wonderful that you have that guts to speak the truth when some people do not want to speak the truth, which is very unloving, especially when someone needs to hear it, because it's going to save them, it's going to help them. You're not going to love them by keeping it in the dark and lying to them. You're sending them to ruin. That's what you're doing. You're not a good friend. However, many times when we love speaking the truth, we struggle with doing it in love. Many times we speak truth in frustration. Correct? Or even in pride. I know better than you. Let me tell you. That kind of truth speaking will never change a person's heart. So if I can give you some wisdom, the best way to speak truth, as we've learned from Nathan, is to ask questions in a humble way and not make statements. Questions are so powerful, guys. Whenever you need to speak truth to a friend that you are afraid is not going to be able to take it or receive it well, the best way of doing it is by asking well-formulated questions. A question does two amazing things. Firstly, it generates and activates initiative in your friend. If I ask a question, you are forced to think about it. If I make a statement, you can decide if you want to think about it and be with me or not. But if I ask the question, you're immediately opening up your files and you're going through that. So initiative is activated. Secondly, when I ask a question, I'm guiding the conversation. Anybody thought about that one before? You know, I've seen this many times in classrooms, and especially when my wife comes back and tells me all the stories of the kids in her class. She's busy presenting Afrikaans, and the next moment there's this little girl puts up her hand. Mrs. Murray, can I quickly tell you about what happened last night with my little budgie bird that died? No. Anybody thinking of Afrikaans now, or is everybody thinking about her budgie bird? The person asking the questions controls the conversation. Think about that, guys. It's such a powerful tool to help your friend. And then secondly, I think when it comes to questions, first seek to understand before you seek to be understood, especially when you want to speak truth to your friend. And questions helps you to get that perspective. First seek to understand where they are, where they come from, how they think about this, what the situation is. Hopefully in that process they discover what's happening before you seek to be understood, your point being on the table. So position yourself in such a way. That might be very practical tools for you to be a very good Nathan. And without all of that being said, all of this goes with praying for your friend before you even going to ask, before you even engaging, and praying for blessing, praying for favor over your friend's life, that you have the same heart, you have the Samuel heart over your friend's life. So there we have it. The three kind of friends that David had in his life that would shape him into the king that would give birth, ultimately his line to the Messiah. Those are the three friends that I believe all of us need in our lives to shape our future for hope. But they are also the friends that God is calling us to be towards our peers and our friendship groups that we're in.
Thanks for joining us online today. As a family, we would love to meet you in person, so plan a visit to our Dr. Deo Durban campus by going to drDeo.org/Durban.